Ever feel like shifting your goals means you're taking a step back? What if it's actually the smartest move forward? Welcome to Smart Driven Women. I'm Rona Job. Here, impactful leaders and entrepreneurs come to share how they navigate their complex careers and personal lives. Our guest today is Evelyn Miller. She is a partner at Smart Settlements and oversees all of the company's closings, like their quality of work and delivery to people buying properties. Smart Settlements is an award-winning title insurance company in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Florida. Evelyn graduated cum laude from the University of Florida and earned her JD from Emory Law School. She was also named Dynamic Woman by DC Magazine and has served on the board of the DC Land and Title Association. Evelyn, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for making me sound cool, Rona.
Of course. Well, there wasn't much additional work needed there, really, or any additional work needed there, because you are, in my mind, a smart-driven woman. So I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be on today.
I'm going to start off with some rapid-fire questions for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better before we dive into some of our deeper questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
What city do you live in, and who's in your household?
I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And my 14-year-old son lives with me. And my mom lives right next door to me in our guest house.
Do you want to mention the dogs?
Oh, sure. I have two mini Labradoodles, Beckham and Barkley. They're named after football players because my son is a football fanatic. How could I forget?
Coffee or tea in the morning?
Coffee, and lots of it, and strong.
What's the last book you finished?
So there's a book that I keep reading over and over again. It's called Manifest Now. Highly recommend. That is the book that I most recently read. I also love to read like historical fiction and stuff like that too, though.
And some favorite app on your phone?
Instagram all day. And Amazon. I mean, that's what I'm usually using.
I was going to say, yeah. Like that's the only one? No. Podcasts or audiobooks?
Both.
Who's a professional role model for you?
This is going to be really different, but I'll say Thurgood Marshall.
One cause you are passionate about?
I'd say civil rights, women's rights, civil rights, yeah.
Mountains or beach for vacation?
Beach.
Best career advice you've ever received?
Best career advice I've ever received. One of the things that my dad, this actually transcends just career advice, but one of the things that my dad used to say is that he reserves the right to change his mind. I think that can go for both career and just life in general. I think just to keep persevering towards the goal that you've selected, like I think goal setting and then perseverance towards the goal is super important.
Yeah, I love it. And lastly, what trend in real estate excites you the most right now?
I think the trend of things being more online and electronic is exciting, kind of like the technology wave that's coming into our industry. So, closings and paperwork being able to be more virtual, like signing with a notary, but you're online instead of in front of people. I think that's kind of the wave of the future.
Yeah. It's kind of like when folks moved over to DocuSign back in the day.
Exactly.
All right. Now we're going to go dive a little deeper and talk a little bit about your personal story and your journey in life and towards the career that you're in now and how that could have amazing lessons for our listeners today. So let's go back early. Before you started your professional career journey, like before, as a young child, as a young girl, did you always consider yourself driven? When do you think that identity started to sink in?
I don't know that I thought about it as I am so driven. I definitely had goals from an early age. I mean, I can remember deciding that I wanted to be a lawyer because I would watch The People's Court. And somehow I equated that to what being a lawyer would be like, which, by the way, that's not at all what it's like.
You don't say.
But I would watch The People's Court, and then I would also, I kind of always had an interest in civil rights law from like a young age. And I saw our legal system as kind of a way of righting wrongs in the world or righting inequalities. And I guess kind of, reading history books and seeing how the court system could actually try to undo unequal systems in the country. And so this definitely became like something where I felt like I want to be empowered by becoming an attorney so that I can fight different injustices or, I perceived it as powerful, and so it did become a goal from like a really early age to go to law school to become a lawyer. Of course, in practice, once I actually started working, I was like, I definitely rethought the type of law that I initially thought that I would get into. So I had a full about face with the kind of law that I ended up practicing. But yeah, that was initially what drew me to this career path. I do remember thinking about at an early age that, I did know I wanted to make good money. That was important. and I knew that having a career as an attorney, I could both work for myself or also work for someone else, that there was kind of like a flexibility there. My parents were entrepreneurs who worked together, built a business together. And so I think like entrepreneurship seemed like a kind of natural thing to me, to do.
Yeah.
As well. So.
And your approach to goals in general has always been interesting to me and been inspiring to me. And knowing that you came from entrepreneur parents, I think that makes a lot of sense. I remember something that you said to me a while back ago about school. And, this obviously was a mindset that you had early on. And certainly I didn't think of it this way when I was in school. You said, I studied like it was my job, which I thought was interesting because I don't think most folks think that way. It's sort of like, yeah, let me get through this. Yeah, I have these deadlines. Let me get to it. But the way that you had described it was, I studied like it was my job. Like, this is what I was meant to do. This is what I'm striving towards. Talk to me a little bit more about that and your views on leaning into your goals.
Yeah. It's actually a work-life balance technique for me to do this, because when I was studying for the LSAT, like to get into law school, and then also when I was studying for the bar and also just studying in law school, right? Like, I think you get into, like, when you're in grad school like that, or you're studying for something so serious as the bar exam, you can be super stressed about it. You can be really overwhelmed by the amount of work that it takes to learn all of this stuff and absorb all this information. And you could easily study all day, every day, or literally feel guilty for every hour that you're not studying. Like if you're not literally taking a shower or eating, you should be studying, and I kind of figured that, like, you know what, I just need to allot time. So I'm going to study like it's my job. And when I get off of my job, I'm not studying anymore, and it's okay. Right. So maybe I will study, from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. and then I'm off of work now. So if I would do something, if I go to dinner with a friend, if I have some time off, I'm allowed that because I've been focused. I checked off my hours for the day, so it was actually kind of like a work-life balance for me. But I will say, because I saw other friends of mine that were doing the same thing, that were studying as well. And it was kind of wreaking havoc on their life. They're super unhappy, they're full of anxiety. And for me, it was kind of a mental way of this time is for this, and then I have other time that is for other things. I think I've actually employed this with, I happen to have worked with a lot of friends and family. When you do that, my mother works with me now, she's my, lead underwriter. I also see her all the time, and you kind of have to sometimes have boundaries with that, or else it can wreak havoc on your life. And, sometimes, we could be having dinner together and she'll say, oh, I want to ask you about this file. And sometimes I'm like, not right now. We're off the clock right now. This is not the dinner I had envisioned this evening, So it's boundaries.
It is. Yeah. And it sounds like you still to this day, with me working with you and also being friends and having non-work events that we go to or that we spend time on. I do really appreciate that. And I do really admire that.
Well, thank you.
It sounds like you have been practicing time blocking even before, quote unquote, time blocking was a thing. And, you and I have been around real estate for a long time. And a lot of the clients in real estate, which are both the buyers and sellers, but also the real estate agents and the lenders, them being entrepreneurs. How have you found your approach affected either positively or negatively towards the clients that you work with?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that I feel like at this point in my career, I'm really fortunate to be able to choose to work with people, and I mean customers and colleagues that I want to work with. So I feel really lucky and fortunate to do that. And one of the things I really value in like creating the work culture around me is having people around me who I really respect their skill set, their abilities. They know stuff I don't know. I love that. I love to have people around me that know stuff, people who are smarter than me, people who know how to do stuff I don't know, like bring it on. But I also love the idea of like the people around me, I wouldn't mind having a drink with them after work too. And I think consciously or subconsciously, I'm actually selecting for that when I'm deciding to work with people. But definitely a lot of my customers are people who at this point I do have a personal relationship with. You know, they can text me late at night and I'll answer, or call me on the weekend and I'll respond. I'm good with that. Because I know that they're working all the time and I know that they do respect my time. Now, there could be times when I'm doing a family thing on the weekend and if I see a text, I might not answer immediately because I'm time blocking in this moment, but yeah, I don't mind that. And I actually love that I have relationships, like real relationships with the customers that I work with. And I look at what I do. I mean, the people that we're doing work for, this is for most of them the biggest financial transaction they will ever partake in their life. So it's a big deal and it's time sensitive and it's emotional and it's personal. So, I mean, I do take it really seriously and I understand that timeliness of a response can be really important. The accessibility of your title company professional can be really important. So I don't take that lightly.
Yeah. And I mean, that sounds like, as you're subconsciously selecting, you're looking for that alignment of vibes with the folks that you're working with.
Yeah.
Which then leads to them and you knowing that, hey, I am for you. I want you to win.
Yeah.
And you are for me. And I know you want me to win. And so that really helps a lot with, when folks have like an off hours question and you're able to really decide like, is this something that needs to be answered right now that I need to really help with versus can I answer later and enjoy the moment that I'm in?
Yeah. I mean, a good friend of mine is a real estate agent and she told me years ago that when she used to recommend to her clients, the clients don't necessarily know where they want to close. They don't necessarily have a preference of a title company. And she said, when I used to recommend you, I would say, oh, this is the title company I recommend. And here's why they're really good. They're very experienced. She'd kind of just like run down this very general resume of why we should close here. And she said that she was reticent to just say, this is my best friend's title company and you should close there because she didn't want it to feel like they're, she has an interest in this. And then she said she realized after a while, she's like, you know what? That actually is kind of the best reason because the fact that there is a real relationship here matters, right? And so she said after a while, she was just like, yeah, this is my best friend's title company and they're really good. And also if I need her at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday, she's going to answer. And she's going to be responsive and she's going to walk us through it. I mean, relationships do matter. This is a very personal and very monumental transaction.
Love that.
So
you have mentioned the importance of persevering towards goals with blinders on. Can you share a little bit more about that and how that mindset had become critical to your success as a professional, as a mother, as a friend, as a community engaged leader?
What I mean by that is a lot of times I think the difference between people who succeed at their goals and people who don't are literally, it's literally just who gives up and who doesn't, And I like to start by setting a goal and then just continue taking steps towards that goal. Sometimes they're baby steps. Sometimes they are, life-changing steps, moving to another state. I mean, when I first moved to DC, I was moving from Georgia. I'd been doing real estate law in Georgia and then moved all the way to a different jurisdiction to start business there. I did this in the middle of the real estate crisis where literally the whole industry is crashing around me. I'm meeting with title insurance underwriters and they're kind of like, are you crazy? Like, why would you be opening a new title company in this market when there's nothing but foreclosures and disaster, all around? People are dropping out of the business like crazy. So I was doing this. If I were to look at only data and just be like data driven in this goal, I would never have done this, which I'm sure this kills you, Rona, because Rona, you would have said, don't do do this, Evelyn. This is not the time to open a title company. But I was just kind of like working towards this goal with blinders on. There were so many different challenges. I'm getting licensed in a new jurisdiction. I'm opening up a new office. The market is crap. So I have to make entirely new relationships in order to make the business work. I have to learn new jurisdictions. And so there were a lot of things working against me. And what I did was just keep going, honestly, just keep going. And so sometimes it's a big step. Oh, we got a cool office. We made it really swanky. Sometimes it's a little step of I went to a networking event. I did this. I did that, but I just kept trying. And there were moments when I was literally like, why have I moved to such an expensive city to do this? But, everything's a weed out, right? I mean, entering a new business, it's a weed out. Like, can you outlast the competition? When the market started to come back, what happened is that I'd been holding on. I had been cutting my teeth on the industry, doing like the most disastrous, complicated real estate transactions because that's all there was. We're only seeing short sales and foreclosures, like a regular deal where somebody actually has money or isn't in foreclosure or there are no title problems. Like those are so far and few between. So I really kind of learned how to work through so many different difficult things. And then in the meantime, other title companies were going out of business. So once the market started to come back, I suddenly had a whole bunch of customers that were like, wow, like you really work really hard on our deals. And, the realtors were like, you really try to make sure that we get to closing, even when it's really complicated and there are all these different problems. And in my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, because I literally don't make any money either. If this doesn't close, but that's how just focused I was on trying to reach this goal and make this work. And there were definitely moments where, I remember thinking of like moving to South Carolina or something. Like, why don't I do this in a state that's more affordable? Like, why am I living in like one of the most expensive jurisdictions? And, I'm killing myself here. Yeah, I just didn't stop. I just kept going. And I think a lot of times what happens is that people do give up. And once you do that, once you let the doubt seep in, that's when you stop taking the steps towards what you're trying to do. It's that simple. That's the difference between achieving and not.
How does this apply to how you parent? You're in what I like to call a football family, right? You were married to a former NFL player. Your son plays football in high school. How does the whole mindset of just persevering and keep on going apply in the way that you parent, in the way that you run your household?
My friends would say that they are very surprised that I'm actually the heavy in my household.
The heavy?
I'm the heavy. Yeah. Like I am. And everybody's always like, oh, I don't, so I'm like very easygoing and, or at least I appear that way. So they're surprised that I'm actually silently the disciplinarian. Like no bark, all bite is what I would say. I'm no bark, all bite. Like I'll tell you very nicely. I see that
in our professional sort of relationship too with when things get hairy. I have seen it a few times and that's what Thomas calls, they've met business Evelyn.
The business side of Evelyn. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Yeah, occasionally like that will happen. And people will be like, oh my gosh, like what just happened here? And oh, nothing. You just got the business side of Evelyn. I mean, it does exist. Like I did go to law school. Like there's an angle there. I'd like to think I am kind of an easygoing parent in certain ways, but I expect a lot of hard work. It's interesting when it comes to like my son playing football, he's very driven to play football. Like he would love to play in the NFL. Like this is a goal for him. I'm happy that he is working towards that. I love that for him if he loves that for himself. That is not something, though, that I require of him. I'm like, hey, like you could go to grad school. There are all kinds of amazing careers that you could have that are not football. But if this is your dream, yeah, go ahead, set the goals, keep taking the little baby steps towards it,
Are you finding a lot of parallels in your leadership approach and your parenting approach? Do you see differences there or are they pretty similar?
That's a really good question. I don't know that they are that similar. So I feel like when I am like with my leadership approach with people that I work with, I like to surround myself with really smart people. I really do value that. Like if you are able to tell me something that I don't know, teach me about something, if you have a skill set that I don't possess, like if you're more detail oriented than me, or you're more data driven than me. I mean, I could use this with all of my partners. Like there are certain aspects of all their personalities where I'm like, you do this thing that I don't really do that great. Love that for me. I am not at all intimidated by having people around me that can tell me something about myself. There is a post-closer that works with me at Smart who I've worked with for, it's like almost 2 decades now. And I remember early on when I started working with her that she would be telling me about stuff that I did wrong all the time. No, but I love that. I was like, oh my God, like you're indispensable because
I hear it. I've gotten those phone calls.
Yeah.
I love them though.
No, but it's so important. Like if you can tell me something that I don't know, I love that. And you will become indispensable to me. And also, I mean, this is a random thing, but kindness, I like it when people are kind. I have had situations of working with people where I was noticing things that maybe like just I didn't find kind, even though there is a business end of Evelyn. In general, I think it's just, it is important to be kind.
Evelyn, we've covered so many different topics in this small amount of time. I've got one last question left for you. 2 other smart-driven women who are just starting their journey and hoping to lead their own team, either in real estate or in their own business. What's your advice?
I would say, I would go back to the goal setting. I would say, pinpoint the goal and keep working towards it. Be undaunted in that approach. Do dynamic things to get there. Do small things to get there, but keep going. Surround yourself with the smartest, most talented people you can find. Don't shy away from that. Don't be intimidated by people who know more than you. You should embrace them. And I would say be kind along the way in that journey. I can't tell you how many customers started working with me because they said that we were really nice, and you know what, one thing I hadn't mentioned earlier, I know we talked a little bit about like data driving certain decisions that you may make. Don't forget to follow your intuition. Don't forget to listen to your intuition. I would not be where I am now if all it was doing was looking at statistics and data. I would have never even opened my first title company. I would have just bowed out and I guess moved to South Carolina. But yeah, I was following my intuition, and when things got difficult, what I would do is shift my focus on to the positive things that are exciting to me about what I do. So, I mean, literally, the real estate market is crashing around me, but I might shift to how beautiful my office is and how much I love how it looks and what new art should I get for the walls, or should I, what new art should I paint for my walls? Because I like to do that too. Like, what part of what you do is really exciting to you that you can focus on more? And sure, you have some problems over here, or there are some challenges that you need to work through. You do the steps to fix those things, but don't put too much focus on how hard that is, because it will take away from your journey. It might make you stop pursuing your dream if you end up just focusing on the negative things. Like, I think about this almost like if you're buying a house, right? Like I just recently bought a house. There is a part of buying a house that's very exciting. There's also a part of buying a house that's very technical and daunting, right? So filling out a loan application, gathering all your financial information, not so fun, but like dreaming about how beautiful your house is going to be and how are you going to decorate it. And, you're going to have a dinner party and you're going to do that stuff is fun. Yeah. So sure, you have to do this stuff over here where you have to you do have to complete your loan application. You do have to send your W-2s, your tax returns. So do those things, but do not stress and think about that stuff more than you absolutely have to. You do the things, you take the steps, but focus on the joyful part of your journey. And next thing you know, you'll be there.
I love that. Focus on the joyful part. Keep going. Keep smart people around you, and you'll get there.
Absolutely.
Evelyn, thank you so much for your time, for your wise words, for your advice, for sharing with us your journey in your industry. How would you like our listeners to connect with you after our podcast episode airs?
I would love people to follow me on Instagram. I am Smart Evelyn JD on Instagram. I would love to be connected to realtors, real estate investors, developers, lenders, anybody who's interested in working with an amazing title company.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.